This year's World Cup schedule started in Val d'Isere in France in December, with the skiing world's eyes on the Canadian men's team and specifically on Steve Podborski and Ken Reid. Could these world-class skiers bounce back from their injuries? Podborski's in a car accident at Whistler and Reid's on the hill last year. As we mentioned, I talked to both of them just before they left for Europe and they said they were fine, but they needed to run under race conditions to really get an answer. The answer came from the old man of the mountain, Franz Klammer. 28 years of age, having not won a race since 1977, streaking right back to the top, and called it an old man's winter dream. King Franz is back. The best Canadian skier was the reigning world downhiller, Steve Podborski, cruising to a fourth-place finish, starting a comeback on last year's season when he lost the World Cup Downhill Championships by less than a quarter of a second overall. Ken Reid, his knee fully recovered, finished fifth. Another of the injured also made a successful return his first time out. Peter Mueller missed the last race last season after a spectacular crash at the bottom of the Wengen course. He came back starting this year, finishing second at Val d'Isere. Then still in December, the series moved from France to Italy at Val Gardena, 3,446 meters that produced a first-time winner. He is Erwin Resch of Austria, and he led the Austrian contingent to 5 of the first 8 places as he posted his first win ever on the World Cup circuit, having been 4th in his previous best. For Steve Podborski, there was disappointment, as the classy Canadian had problems on the corners, got off his line, and finished 4th. He called it a technically imperfect run, one that could have been much better. The story at Val Gardena was that of Konrad Bartelski. He finished 3rd and said he'd gone all out after getting up that Sunday morning and hearing of the declaration of martial law in his father's native Poland. Said he, "I was really angry when I heard the news. It gave me extra incentive." Then from Italy, back to the Swiss Alps in the Crans-Montana. 3,633 meters roaring down the slopes to the resort village below, and there Canada's Steve Podborski collects a Christmas present 5 days early. He upstages the man he picks to win the race, his longtime challenger, Peter Mueller. Podborski wins it by 15/100ths of a second. And there's more reason for Canadian excitement than Steve Podborski's win. Ken Reid roars right back to the top 5 at Crans-Montana, erasing all the concern that had been voiced after he finished 24th the week before at Val Gardena. Podborski's celebration of the win was delayed somewhat, and that he had to stand at the bottom and await Peter Mueller's run. Pod having picked the veteran Swiss racer to win it all, and he almost did. Mueller finished a hair's breadth behind, just 15/100th of a second behind the 24-year-old from Toronto, or North York. They took the Christmas break that saw Steve back here in Ontario and then back to work this time in Morzine, France, only to have the race canceled and move to Kitzbühel in Austria. They would run the infamous Hahnenkamm twice in as many days. On the first day, we find Steve looking for his second straight win as he continued as the sport's #1 seed. The course was icy. They'd iced it, and it was very fast, the chattering of the skis rattling off the slopes. Podborski set the pace in the early going at 1 minute 57.89 seconds, but it did not stand up against the Austrians who stormed to the front. This time, it was Hardy Weyraucher who took the gold as the top 40 skiers of the day shattered the long-standing Franz Klammer record time for the hill. Weyraucher bumped Podborski to second, a full 6/10ths of a second off the winning pace. And again in Kitzbühel, Ken Reid maintained his recovery, again finishing 3rd and skiing well, obviously happy with the recovery of the knee that was literally in pieces not a year before. The next day on the 16th of January, Kitzbühel again, the Hahnenkamm course, and the Canadians take the big step to the top. Steve Podborski corrects the problems he had the day before at the top of the course, chops seconds off his time, and wins the most prestigious race of them all on the Hahnenkamm course, the top-rated downhill on the circuit. And Ken Reid moves up to second spot with his best race of the year. The concerns about his knee and its strengths now gone. He's as good as new. Canadian coach John Ritchie says Ken Reid skis better now than before he was hurt. And behind Podborski and Reid, the revitalized king of the hills skis his mountain 3rd best that day as he pushes the other 2. Franz Klammer. Then to Wengen, and trouble for the Canadians. Saturday, they finished 7th and 13th, and the race is canceled with 13 racers gone. They go again on Sunday on a shortened course. Steve Podborski's 11th, Ken Reed is 23rd, and they both wonder aloud about their skis. Hardy Weyrother uses the same skis, and he wins gold for Austria as their team takes the top 5 placings on the day to continue the story of the year where only Austrians and Steve Podborski have won 6 races in the season. The score is now Austria 4, Steve Podborski 2. Garmisch, West Germany, the icy Kandahar downhill course. The vertical drop there is 920 meters, and this run is 3,320 meters long. This is the run last year where Ken Reed failed to finish, almost in this corner. Here's Hardy Weyrother, and he was the biggie. Almost. That was the winnie right there, Steve Podborski, and he blew away Hardy Weyrother. All right. Now, this gentleman has not been seen or heard from in a long time. As we told you, he was in a motorcycle accident in September, broke his leg. But Steve Podborski said when they got to Whistler, which is where this is being shot, that this would be the run for Mueller. And if you notice the wide stance that has been emphasized so much, the way he runs, he glides well. He is the glider on the World Cup downhill circuit, and he glided, if I may, to victory and won his first World Cup championship this year, World Cup race, Peter Mueller. And this also was a must for Steve Podborski. And Steve had to come through because Hardy Weyrother was on his tail, and at this time, so was Peter Mueller. So Pod did come through, coming second in a race that saw a lot of Canadians finishing up high in the standings, which made, of course, everybody in Whistler and British Columbia very, very happy. This is Steve Podborski at Whistler, British Columbia, as we're reviewing our World Cup races this year on Ski Base. It was a good one for Steve, a must one. 2 minutes, 15 seconds, 33. Now, Dave Irwin, his last race. And he had not finished well in World Cup standings since 1975. And he was finishing this year. He has now since retired from any further World Cup competition. And he did it big, finishing 3rd in British Columbia and going out in style. And he said part of it was the fact that the crowd egged him on and cheered and cheered and cheered for him, much like they do in Europe. This gentleman is the one that they're touting now to be the next Steve Podborski, if we may use that expression. Todd Brooker, big, strong, and one heck of a skier. Todd Brooker finishing way up high at Whistler, and again the crowd egging him on. Now he has the same stance as Peter Mueller does, the wide, aerodynamic, running position. And he did well at Whistler. Todd Brooker. Now to Aspen. Here we have the situation where Steve Podborski has the World Cup within his grasp, as long as Hardy Weyrother doesn't win. He didn't want any repeat of last year. This is Steve Podborski on the Friday at Aspen. He ended up placing 14th both races. It was again Peter Mueller who was the big winner, winning his second of 3 in a row. But this is Steve Podborski right now. Time of 1 minute 48.84 seconds, 14th place. This is the guy again. The stance just tells it all. Peter Mueller from Switzerland. His winning run at Aspen. 2 in a row for him. Now, if he was in shape, this gentleman, who was already a 2-time consecutive World Cup downhill championship winner, could have won it again. The time to beat was 1:47.55. Does Peter Mueller beat it, or does Peter Mueller beat it? He does. And now, Hardy Weyrother, forced with having to win both races to beat Steve Podborski, does not do it. He did it last year. He didn't do it this year. This is the Friday action at Aspen World Cup races here on Ski Base, and this is Hardy Weyrother. On the Friday race, he came in within 11 100ths of beating Peter Mueller. He didn't do it this time. Time to beat was 1:47.17. He had 1:47.28. Next day, Steve Podborski with it. Oh, it's clearer now. He almost has it. It's almost for sure. Again, Steve Podborski not racing well, making mistakes. He said it was kind of weird racing that weekend because of the fact he was so happy at winning the World Cup. You see him sliding out there, and yet finishing so poorly as far as he was concerned in the final 2 races at Aspen. But nonetheless, he has the World Cup championship for 1981-82 in his grasp, and we're all happy for him. Peter Mueller back on the same course again, and the man is astounding, just astounding. Look at him cut that track. There's the skier. They're all good. The man just shows it a little bit better, I would think. Peter Mueller on the Saturday races in Aspen, Colorado, high in the American Rockies. Racing to show the ski world that he indeed is back. And he was. Hardy Weyrother on the final day, hoping to salvage some pride for Austria and himself. Racing hard, but knowing full well that the World Cup is not available to him this year. But a tremendous competitor, a close personal friend of Steve Podborski. And needless to say, a tremendous ski talent. Hardy Weyrother. In Aspen, Colorado. These are the Saturday races. 2 days in Aspen, Colorado. Beautiful weather. The World Cup down there sponsored by the people at Subaru. Time to beat, 146.50. Hardy with 147.35.